So what we all know and are certain about is this. We know that substance use disorders are on the rise. They're a significant concern in our country. They're a public safety issue. We define substance use disorder as having at least two of the criteria from the DSM-5. I use certain assessments. I'm sure you do. We use the audit for alcohol. Now they have the CUDIT, C-U-D-I-T. You can look that up. And that is the cannabis use disorder. This is a new thing on the market that we need. And so all of our clients that come in fill out the audit, they fill out the CUDIT, they fill out the DSM-5 questionnaire, and then we have ASAM criteria questions. So in their assessment, when they come in, we will find out what their issues are, and we'll put them into mild, moderate, or severe categories. Of course, people who are diagnosed with a severe substance use disorder will need to go to rehab and possibly even to detox. Those who have a moderate will need intensive outpatient. So most of the people that we're working with, we have about 120 people a week in our treatment groups. Most all of them are in the mild to the lower moderate category. So they're in group treatment and in some individual counseling. But what we do know is that individual and community costs for substance use in our country are estimated at over 193 $1 billion. And much of that, at least a third or more of that, is from the opioid crisis alone. If you keep up on television at all, Netflix, the number one show in Netflix right now is called Painkillers. I do highly recommend it. My wife and I started watching that. It's kind of sad when you're a substance use counselor and in your free time, you like watching programs about substance abuse. But this is a series about how the entire opioid situation came to be and some of the corruption and things that went on there. So let's talk about the power of group. The power of group. Group therapy can be a wonderful and great source of therapeutic healing for people in that group. It can be a wonderful opportunity for people to find an emotional catharsis, a sense of healing. The way it's delivered, the shared experience of the group is what sets it apart. So when a group treatment program, when a group is run in the right way, there is an experience that happens. Of course, you want them to learn certain information. I'm going to share with you today how you can do that, but they need to walk away having had a good experience. It's an indispensable element for effective substance misuse and mental health treatment. So what we're doing is we're creating an atmosphere where people can work together in the group. After decades of research, including more than 50 clinical trials, they've shown that group therapy can be as effective as individual therapy. So what happened in the 1950s and after that, insurance companies said, look, we will no longer pay for someone to go to a therapist individually twice a week for 10, 20 years. We're not doing that anymore. And that's when group therapy was created. Also, that's when brief solution focused therapy was created. Those things came to be because therapists all of a sudden realized we've got to do some things differently or we're not going to have a job before long. And so that is one of the, several of the reasons why it came into being. Now, in the chat box, if you would, let me know if you're running groups, if you have run groups, if you do currently, or if you plan on running treatment groups in the future, if you don't mind answering that. If you have run groups, if you do run groups, if you plan on running groups. Now, the demand for group therapy is up. We have clients that come to us quite often who have, gone to several other places. They have, tried to get into other programs. Places are booked. Quite often it's hard for them to find a place. And so the demand for group therapy is constantly rising. A lot of newer psychologists are being asked to lead groups. They're being done in hospitals, community mental health setting. So there are many, many different settings for people to be involved in group treatment. Now, there's something we must realize. Group therapy, group treatment is a specific skill. And let's be honest and fair with each other, it's not for everyone. I don't know if you've ever been in a group that was run by someone poorly that didn't work out well. So we had an intern years ago that I had trained And she would come in one particular evening. She came into the treatment group, and everybody sat down. There were probably 10 or 12 people in the group. One of them said, by the way, my brother died yesterday and I really want to use. Now let's think about that for a second. My brother died yesterday, and that really makes me want to use. So she was looking at the workbook when the client said that. She looked up and heard what they said, oh, okay. All right, let's go to page 12. Now that is a poor experience. And eventually I had to let her go because she wasn't running groups in the right way. She wasn't connecting with people. And some people have a hard time with that. And so we'll look at some of the ways that we can make that work. But the APA's commission for the recognition of specialties and proficiencies include group psychology. They include group psychotherapy as an evidence-based specialty. So we know that's true. Now, we want to recognize that group therapy, group treatment, is not just individual treatment run in a group. That's not how this works. So it's not that you're doing individual counseling while you're in a room full of people. So that's where we have to understand the nuance of the change. It has its own techniques. There are certain processes we're going to talk about, and there are strategies that we'll look at. And unless you really understand these, then you'll have struggles. Now, for those of us, and it looks like most of us in the chat have said that we have run groups or are running groups or plan to, we're going to learn some strategies and do some troubleshooting today that in some ways you may not find anywhere else. So as we move in farther along, especially after into the second half, we're going to do a lot of troubleshooting about what do you do when you have some problem people. But we need to be a part of a community where we're committed to learning and growing in this work. I'm still learning about how to run groups, and I run a group on Friday evenings. We have 10 groups with about 120 people every week, and I run usually about 2 of them a week. But there was a time back in the day when I ran all the treatment groups, and that's where I got a lot of my experience and learning. So why would we do group therapy? You know, what's the purpose behind it? And when we talk about this concept of the power of the group, why take this approach? Why do groups? Well, the first one is because groups, and this is from Dr. Yalom. He's a specialist. He's like the father of group. He said they install hope, and it's true. When you run groups in the right way, you're helping people find hope and meaning and purpose while they're doing that treatment to install hope. Secondly, we're providing a sense of universality. And what we mean by that is that when clients, I had a client yesterday that I assigned to a group, and I said, here's how this is going to work. You will see people who are way worse off than you are. You will see people who are way better off than you are. And you'll be able to look around the room and say, okay, these people are like me, and I see where I fit. So what it does is it normalizes the situation. It shows that client that there's a universality to their problem. This is refuting one of the main issues we have with substance use disorder today. And that is that people feel like they're isolated and alone, and that they're the only one that is like them. They're the only person that has their issue, which we prove is not the case. So they see that. Of course, we're going to impart information, right? So in each of our sessions that we have, we'll have icebreakers, we'll have other things we'll look at today. But in the middle of that, we're going to have some information that we want them to take away with them. And so we'll talk about how to do that. There's a sense of altruism in the group, because what ends up happening is as people form connections together in that circle, Bill over here to your right may really want to reach out to Gary across the table or across the room and say, look, let me just tell you, man, I've been where you are, and I can sense what you're going through. And so that sense of goodness, of generosity and goodwill takes place, where there's the interaction of people wanting to help each other. And we certainly do want to encourage that. Then you have the development of socializing techniques. And we'll dive into that deeper as we go along today. But what happens is, in the interconnectedness of the group, then people begin to socialize in a safe atmosphere. and maybe in their home life and maybe in their personal life, they've never felt comfortable feeling social, reaching out to other people, communicating with other people. They felt very awkward about all that. Well, in treatment, because it's a safe atmosphere, they now have a place where they can learn to socialize without medication, without self-medicating, without substances, and that can be a very rewarding experience for our clients. As we run our groups, we're going to try to help them to develop some group cohesiveness, and what we mean by that is that the people in the group feel like they belong there. They identify as being in that group. Yeah, that's my group. I have Tuesday night group, or I have Thursday night group, or I go to group on Saturdays. And so rather than it being a drudgery, then what we want for it to happen is for it to eventually become something they look forward to. Now, I don't know how it works for you in your practice. For us, probably 89, 90% of our clientele are court appointed. This is extreme case because what happens with court appointments, they have to be there, whether they will like it or not, whether they want to be there or not, they are there. And so we want them to make the best of it that they can. So when they become cohesive in that group and they enjoy and join into the group, and that does happen quite often about the third or fourth week of treatment, they start to relax a little bit and feel like that they're comfortable there. We would like for a group to sense, or at least individuals within the group, have a sense of catharsis from time to time. And so what we mean by that is for them to have a sense of release. Catharsis has to do with the cleansing of the soul. So there's a moment from time to time when they go, oh, okay, I get that. Now that makes sense. Or now I understand, in the 12-step world, they call it a light bulb moment sometimes, or there's a moment of clarity. There's interpersonal learning is going on. There's mutual support, like we talked about before. And then another real benefit and goal of groups is that we're simulating the primary family unit in some ways. Now, not exactly, but in some ways. So when a person looks around the room and makes the decision to share something that's very personal and that may make them feel vulnerable, when they look around to do that, they're simulating what they felt in the primary family unit. And so if they were made fun of, if they were put down, if they were discouraged from sharing things, they're going to have to go over that hurdle in this new group in this safe setting. And that's what I mean by the simulation of a primary group. There are corrective emotional experiences. As a facilitator, there may be times you have to correct people, that you have to kind of realign them, and we'll talk about how to do that. And then in general, we're developing social skills with the clients that are members of the group.